So, as we've talked about it yesterday, the sort of nationwide strike in Israel is happening today. As far as I understand, it's not a sort of full-on general strike. Basically, some of the, or at least few of the union leaders didn't want this to happen, so we didn't go full-on as a general strike as it was talked about by some people. But still, a lot of Israel is shut down. Of course, Houthis used the situation to send, I think, one and then another rocket attack. Thankfully, it was stopped and it didn't go through. Nobody was hurt. But still, this is happening, and we'll talk about it today. And we'll talk about again how this exact thing helps Hamas. We've talked about past protests and how they help Hamas, but also we'll maybe talk a little bit about how in Israeli society apparently people can stand up to government, but in the Palestinian society nobody is. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Joining me today is James Valiant. And James, any opening thoughts on this?
Well, just based on what you said, I mean, you raised several issues. The Houthis attack. Wait a minute here. These are the people who are demanding an end to the war in Gaza and so forth. So it's rich in irony. Further, adding to the irony on irony is the fact that there is free speech in Israel. People can complain about their government, unlike in most of the surrounding Islamic countries. Another dimension of irony there. But this is a serious protest. It's a nationwide protest. There've been, what, 30 some arrests, and they're blocking streets, and they're going well beyond what I would think free speech involves. That is to say, even violating ordinary people's right to go around and do their business. I do not regard the violation of other people's rights, as a form of free speech or a valid form of protest. But in any case, it shows that Israel is very much a Western country in that respect. It regards protests of this kind as a form of free speech, and it has a Western form of free speech. And unfortunately, it shows another dimension of Israel's accepting the Western mentality when it comes to war. You can complain about Netanyahu's government, but Netanyahu's government sort of opened up this as a theoretically valid position, I suppose. If you're going to compromise, if you're going to try and feed the enemy, if you're going to warn people to get out of buildings before you bomb them, if you're going to fight a war in the altruistic way that Israel has been fighting the war, I mean, this goes back to the way America responded to 9/11, right? George Bush said, this isn't Islam. We're not going to attack hospitals or mosques. We're going to try and win over the hearts and minds of people. If only we can feed them and send them enough care packages. What would we drop in Afghanistan? A bunch of care packages in the wake of 9/11. Well, Israel is fighting. That's the roadmap. George Bush sort of provided the roadmap for both Hamas and Israel, didn't he? That's the way we fight wars now, altruistically. We have an intrinsic fear of killing anybody on the other side, even if it's Hamas's fault, even if it's a jihadist's fault. We sure don't want to hurt Islam. We sure don't want to hurt ordinary Muslims. We don't even want to name the ideology that we're fighting. And if you fight in a morally compromised way, as Netanyahu's fought, maybe he's done better than George Bush after 9/11, but not much. It's still a terribly altruistic, morally compromising. Let's find how many times has Netanyahu agreed to negotiations when there shouldn't be any kind of negotiations with Hamas, even indirectly through the Qatarians or whoever else, American Special Representative Wickoff or whoever. You don't compromise with evil. Once you've started down the path of compromise, which began almost immediately after October 7th, 2023, Netanyahu did not have the moral clarity that is required to defeat the enemy. And so once you're like that, Netanyahu himself is sort of morally disarmed at people outflanking him in the let's compromise and negotiate department, right? And they're simply the more consistent ones when it says we can negotiate with Hamas, we can settle this. It's not the Palestinians who are our enemy, et cetera, et cetera. Once you go down this compromise is the correct way to approach foreign policy, even in the wake of an attack like October 7th, then you've morally disarmed yourself and you're open to people saying, well, if we're going to compromise, let's get those hostages out. And those hostages can hold hostage the well-being of the future of Israel. And that ought never to be the case. Now, of course, taking the hostages was an atrocity. If Israel can get out those hostages in any special forces operation that they can, do it. On the other hand, you cannot compromise on the security of Israel, the long-term security of Israel. And that's what all of these compromises, to one degree or another, insist upon. So it is Netanyahu who, frankly, through his own compromising ways, has teed up his own opposition for saying, yeah, well, then let's just have more compromise and finally get those hostages home. But in both cases, what they've done is they've effectively said, in principle, that the security of Israel is now held hostage to the hostage taking, which only rewards hostage taking as a tactic. As I say, George Bush, not only after September 11th, 2001, laid out the course for Western countries to fight wars like Israel is sort of, and I'm going to put it in air quotes, fighting this war in a compromised way, he also laid out the strategy for Hamas. Yeah, you put your military stuff in hospitals, you use mosques and schools and private homes, and you don't wear uniforms. And the West is so morally disarmed about any civilian casualties on the enemy side that you've opened yourself up precisely to this. So the way we've done things in the 21st century has laid out the strategy for Hamas, and it lays out the strategy for Israel, unfortunately. And both are on the same spectrum of what you'd call compromises with evil. And as Ayn Rand said, and in any compromise between good and evil, only the evil can win. Just as in any compromise between food and poison, it's only poison that can win.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, something you said earlier is, yeah, the Netanyahu's rhetoric. I mean, even when it comes to Gaza, the way he talks about it is free Gaza from Hamas, right? It's there are these innocent Palestinians that we have to rescue, that we have to return. He is again trying to uh, trying to appeal to altruism, right? We are not doing this for ourselves. No, 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 no. We are doing this for the Palestinian people. And again, on one hand, nobody will eat that up. Nobody will think that the reason why Israel is in Gaza is to sort of like help the Palestinians or to rescue Palestinians, because it is ridiculous, right? It is there to end the threat to Israel, as it absolutely should, but it's trying to use the justification for it that simply cannot work. And so, in that way, he is absolutely sort of fueling this.
Yeah.
Now, somebody earlier has asked if we call this episode "Pro-Hamas protesters shut down Israel," and somebody asked if they are really pro-Hamas. Well, something to understand is you don't just listen to what people say. You also look at their actions, as well as there are good intentions and people can be ignorant, but that can only be accepted to a certain amount. If these protests, which I think absolutely are making sure that Israel isn't able to fight this war, that Israel isn't able to end the threat to its existence, you are virtually pro Hamas. You might say, no, you care about the hostages. You might say, no, you just want the end to this war. But this is what happens. And you can't run away from responsibility for your actions just because you don't think this is what it would do. We wouldn't accept this for any communist advocating person, and I don't think we should accept it for any sort of bring them home in quotes person either.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your, globalized intifada sort of Western thought, which is strikingly pro-Hamas. And of course, the university demonstrations, especially last year, you'd see the flag of Hamas or the Palestinian Authority being used. Okay, you say, okay, that is pro Hamas or pro at least Palestinian position. But wait a minute here. There are positions that are short of that, which are surely pro-Hamas, even if that's explicitly what they're not trying not to say. How about France and Great Britain and Canada saying they'll recognize a Palestinian state? Now they would, Keir Starmer and President Macron would tell you, no, we're not pro-Hamas at all. We're just going to reward Hamas for doing October 7th. So they can talk out of two sides of their mouth, even as they're doing this. So there can be peace protesters or pro hostage protests going on, and what they're demanding is a policy that will necessitate the survival of the terrorist ideology, or specifically even require the survival of Hamas. And insofar as they are doing that in practice, they are pro-Hamas. And you can say, okay, well, they're opposed to October 7th. They complained about it. It was awful. They're good, loyal Israelis, just as you can say the same about good, loyal Americans taking a similar position, saying, oh, well, we have to compromise with this evil. No, if you say, I'm going to compromise with this evil to get the hostages back, I don't care how patriotic and Israeli or patriotic and American you are taking a pro-Hamas position. You can say Hamas is evil all day long, but if you're willing to sit down and negotiate with them, if you're willing to reward them for the atrocities of October 7th, then in effect, you are being pro-Hamas.
Yeah, and even the way these protesters are acting, something I've always found a little bit interesting is when you look at sort of their banners, some of them are in Hebrew, but almost always you find all of them in English as well. Now, again, I think Israelis generally are pretty good English speakers, but obviously all of them speak Hebrew, right? So what are you trying to do when you use English language? You are, and this is sort of like the same thing we've seen from Palestinians, right? You are trying to appeal to Western audience. In this scenario, you're specifically trying to appeal to international community to shut down Israel, to disallow Israel from defending itself, or to recognize the Palestinian state, or in case of Germany, stop exporting arms to Israel. Any way they can do so to basically shut down Israeli action. So again, this is a traitor-like actions. You are actively fighting against your state. Now, it's not on a full traitor level that I think demands arresting those people, but it's absolutely you are calling for basically eventual destruction of your state, right? At some point, if Israel is never defending itself, if it's always bending the knee to terrorists, at some point it will basically be destroyed. How else? What else can you do when you have your enemy sending rockets to your place every day and you never respond? I mean, eventually something more will hit. Eventually, you won't be able to simply defend yourself anymore.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, once you've compromised with the evil, you are sanctioning, aiding, and abetting that evil. And you have to just say it that clearly to people. No. You're not Hitler. No, you're not Iran. I understand. You're not advocating, you know, throwing gays off of rooftops or hanging them by chains. You're not advocating the savage barbarity that's so common in the Islamic world. You are taking a moderate, quote, moderate position, which says, oh, yes, well, let's feed the Palestinian people. Let's take care of the Palestinians. Let's protect the Palestinian people, even though the Palestinian people are, from all that we can see, in favor of killing Jews, the destruction of Israel. You can't if someone says, Daniel, I'm going to kill you. There's nothing you can do. I'm hell bent on killing you. And you say, well, don't kill me today. I'll give you 30 euro if you don't kill me today. And you compromise with it. You have, in effect, sanctioned the threat. The threat will not go away. The threat against your life has not been dealt with, has it? You simply abated the threat for one day at a price. And that's exactly the analogous situation here. Hamas is hell-bent on the destruction of Israel. They're anti-civilization in their ideology, and they're anti-Jewish in their daily practice. So if you compromise with that, in any way, shape, or form, you are compromising with your own security. You're saying, okay, well, these people who want to destroy, wipe us all out, they've got a point. They've got a worthy, they have a legitimate seat at the table in the negotiation. Once you've done that, you've really given in to the principle, and you've compromised your own long-term security by necessity.
Yeah, and again, sort of to bring up one of the points I brought up earlier, although first, thank you, PC, for your super chat, and thank you, Bonnie, for your super chat. PC says, James, James, I think comma was supposed to be there. Starmer is bad, because I'm reading James Starmer. Who's James
Hmm.
Starmer?
Oh,
Uh,
don't do that to me. Yeah, we're not related. Yeah, no, he's bad. No, exactly. These compromisers with evil, these people who'd recognize a Palestinian state, or even thinking about recognizing a Palestinian state, are doing exactly that. They're rewarding the perpetrators of October 7th. They're encouraging more October 7th atrocities. And you can say, well, okay, they're not the perpetrators. They're not the people who were actually mutilating bodies, killing children, raping women. No, they weren't the ones doing that. But what are they doing? They're willing to negotiate and compromise with the very people who did all that. Yeah, you're damn right. Starmer is bad. Bad is a nice word. I would say compromise with evil is evil. No, it's not the same dimensions and character of evil as the person who's actually running concentration camps or perpetrating October 7th, but they're the ones who make it possible. They're the ones who make it possible. If we took an uncompromising stance in the West, and this includes Israel, if Israel from the outset had taken an uncompromising stance, if within the first few days Gaza City was rubble, which is what I was advocating on this channel back in early October of 2023, when I was saying, why isn't Gaza City already rubble? Because that would have been a clear moral stand, you see. But no, Israel has not gone the way of true total victory, winning the war, demanding total, unconditional, immediate, unilateral surrender on the part of the terrorists who are involved here. Once you compromise on the idea that have the moral high ground and that these people are worthy of negotiation and compromise, and that we have to preserve their culture and preserve their population and avoid any civilian casualties, you've played into their strategy of hiding weapons in hospitals, of using their own children as, in effect, human shields. And that is truly evil. Now, you're compromising with that kind of evil. Well, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how much, but you're going to get more of that evil. And it's your fault for compromising and negotiating with it.
uh, Deborah in the chat said, most of those with loved ones in Hamas terror tunnels are aligned with Tikva. Only a few leftists are with Kaplanistas. Note how it is their kids they show on videos, all Hamas propaganda. And yeah, it's important to point out the way sort of even the way it's used, right? The hostage families. Well, the fact is, as Deborah says, most of the hostage families are not calling for a ceasefire. They are saying the government should go all in. They are saying that basically the best way to bring their loved ones home is by power, is by going fully in and not surrendering, not negotiating in any way. But when it comes to these protesters, of course, the families they are trying to highlight is the ones that are calling for a ceasefire, that do want, and you know, of course, we cannot blame any families of the hostages that are keeping in Gaza. But what we can talk about is people who are trying to basically use them to advocate for a ceasefire, for surrendering.
Yeah.
As Deborah also said, again, notice that the hostages in Gaza that are being used for propaganda purposes by Hamas are specifically those that have families that are calling for ceasefire, those families that are being used for that matter. So Hamas knows exactly what it's doing, and the people who
Yes.
are sort of using those families in that way are playing into the hands of Hamas, are absolutely helping Hamas when it comes to sort of not being destroyed, because they want this war to stop. They want the Israeli defense to stop.
Think of the strategy in the first place of taking the hostages. They knew that there would be not just the families, But as you point out, the real culprits here are the intellectuals, the journalists, the politicians, and policymakers who say, let's compromise. Let's not go all out. Let's not have a complete victory. And insofar as hostages have been released, it's because of daring Israeli action or because of military pressure, insofar as there have been hostages released. And yeah, Hamas knows exactly what it's doing and knew exactly what it was doing when it took the hostages, knowing that Israel would compromise, knowing that the West's attitude would be one of moral compromise. They're the ones taking, in effect, the ideologically consistent, but ideologically consistently evil position. However, evil cannot exist on its own. Evil requires the sanction of the better places. If it weren't for Western countries saying compromise, they would die on the vine. They are kept alive by policymakers in Israel and in the West saying, yes, we've got to compromise. We've got to make a deal for these hostages. Um, I don't mean to be cruel, but you're absolutely right. I don't hold it against any family member of hostages who would say, let's make a deal, because I would, if it was my wife who had been taken hostage, I would be in a psychological state where I really should be ignored almost by policymakers, frankly. I really, really should be, because I would want nothing more than my loved one to come back. But I would hope that at some point I would be able to look in the mirror, and this, what a hard thing it must be to do, really, for them. That's why I sort of exempt them. But think about it. The question to them would be, how many other people's loved ones are you willing to pay to get your loved one home? I mean, that's maybe you think, well, that's an altruistic standard. No, 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 no. I'm talking about my family, because I've still got people. What about me? What about the other people that I love? What about all those that I love? You've got to ask yourself, how many other people is it worth? How much more hostage taking is it worth to get this hostage X back? And truly, by the way, what are my best chances of getting my loved one back? Is it by making these compromises that Hamas is always backing out of? Or is it by the military pressure and daring action, which is really the only thing that's gotten hostages released over the last better part of 2 years now?
Yeah. So what we absolutely need to see is uh, Israel needs to continue with the sort of current plans that they are. I think it should start at some point in the upcoming days. I think it maybe tomorrow. I've seen like different reports. So, but the action is happening. Israel is going, and IDF is going into the Gaza city and will occupy all of Gaza. This plan is still in place, so this should absolutely happen. Israel should. Um, I mean, not necessarily that I'm advocating for the government to ignore what their people are calling for, but that's what elections are for. The current Israeli government is still in place and will be for some time. And again, even if there was an election, I think people might be surprised, but I think the current government would still maybe in a different configuration, but would still hold on to power because I think majority of Israelis do want this to continue, despite what I think this vocal minority is calling for. So, with that, James, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
You can find me here, the Ayn Rand Center UK. And if you're a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK, you can participate in extra material that I help provide. We just got through with the seminar on Leonard Peikoff's speech, Religion versus America. And last week we did Dr. Peikoff's response to George Bush and 9/11. So it's relevant stuff, but it explains the philosophical background that we use and the ideas we bring to bear here at Ayn Rand Center UK. Another place you'll find me is in Orange County in October at the Irreplaceable Spark Conference. And if you have any ability to get there, I urge you to do so. This is going to be an objectivist conference unlike any that has yet been. And I'll be there. So if you want to catch me, a good place to find me We'll be in Orange County, California, at the Irreplaceable Spark Conference that Ayn Rand Center UK is holding in October.
Yeah, and one other person that will be there is, of course, Michael Kaufman. And with that, we are actually, in just a few minutes, launching our new show, the Sunday Spark, where we'll talk about some of the speakers that will be speaking at the conference. You'll be able to find out a little bit more about them, about why you should come to the conference and listen to them, where we'll talk about their success. So Michael Kaufman is our first guest there, starting in just a few minutes. Link for that is in the chat, so make sure to join us. With that, thank you, James, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and bye bye.
Be safe.